Welcome to Human School. I'm your host, Dr. Patil Armenian. After 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of residency, and 2 years of fellowship, I thought I was done. I did my time, got my degrees, and now I was just gonna live life. Well, think again. Some of my greatest schooling has come after my formal education was complete, and it keeps on coming. Join me at Human School, where we can learn together. I'm an emergency physician and medical toxicologist working at a large teaching hospital in California. I'm also a mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend. Whether you work in healthcare or not, you too lead a busy life. Together, let's work on how we can thrive in all of our real world roles. On this podcast, we'll dig deep into what it means to constantly learn and evolve, to be human. Every other week, I'll share some of my personal stories, interview inspiring people, and offer tools to help you learn more about yourself. Being on the front lines in the ER, you learn a lot about life and death. And though my philosophies were born in a busy emergency room, they can apply to anyone trying to live a joyful life here on Earth. Please listen, share, and subscribe to this podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Instagram at Human School Podcast, and feel free to let me know what topics or guests you want to hear about. And if you like the podcast, don't forget to rate and review it. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Human School. I'm really excited to talk to our guest today, my dear friend Leo Max. I'm going to keep this intro short because we get into so many great topics, and so I just want to hop right into it. Today is our first techniques episode. That is the first episode where I'll interview someone with techniques to help us navigate life. Leo's the perfect person to start this series with because he's just a repository of information. He describes himself as a spiritual hypnotherapist, but is actually so much more. Trained in multiple hypnosis modalities, he incorporates shadow work, inner child healing, somatic therapy, internal family systems or IFS, emotional freedom technique or EFT, and so much more into his work. He does one-on-one sessions, group sessions, and regularly teaches courses. I had one session with him before I took his intensive shadow work training course, and that's really where I got to work with him closely. It was 7 weeks long and only 7 students, which was the perfect size group. I'm pretty sure I was the only one there for fun, which Leo laughs about all the time. Like, who else does intensive shadow work for fun but the person that's just constantly working on the brink of life and death in both of my medical specialties? So that's me. I like to dig into things. Leo's an excellent hypnotherapist, but more importantly, he's taught me a lot of the tools that I use every day to manage my stress and anxiety, both in the workplace and in my personal life. I'm just so grateful to have learned from him and continue to learn from him. So let's jump into our chat. Hi, Leo. Welcome to
Hi,
Human School.
thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So, all right, Leo, I love notes. I
I know
love
you do.
lists.
Love a
So
bullet.
actually, we're going to start with a note. I have a note in my phone. It was actually last edited on June 15, 2021. I love a receipt. It was this long note that I had started months before, and I just was jotting down random thoughts that would pop into my head and then stuff I would do later. And this is the last entry in that note. The last entry says, contact Leo Max regarding trance music and hypnosis, energy in the emergency department. That was it. So 2 days later, I emailed you and you wrote
Yeah,
me back like pretty fast, like a couple
yeah,
hours later, immediately wanting to talk.
yeah. I knew.
And that was crazy because I couldn't believe like you actually were like, oh yeah, I'll talk to you about that stuff.
And the rest is history. It's been
The rest is history.
a wild ride
So
ever since.
I know it has
Yeah, I
been.
remember that day when you get an interesting email and you can feel the frequency behind it. So I don't know, something just clicked. I was like, I need to talk to this person.
Yeah. And mine clicked because I think I heard you on another podcast. And that was the
Hmm.
first time I'd even contacted anyone that I'd heard on a
Oh,
podcast,
really?
like ever. Yeah. I don't fangirl. I don't email people like that.
Proud to be number one. Look at
Yes.
that. Honored.
We're going to open with a real doozy of a question, Leo.
Oh, I guess if
Because,
I dish it, I gotta be able to take it.
yeah, you got to be able to take it. Really, since then, you've really helped me navigate like all my real life experiences way better. And that's something I want to touch on, which is the real
Okay.
world. How can we still live in the real world, work real jobs, and have joy and be able to do this?
Have joy. Yeah, I think that's the question on a lot of our minds, the people that are on this path. I'm assuming people tuning into this, and at least the people in my community, they tend to be people that are figuring out that balance. I think it's a big topic for them. You kind of start the spiritual path or self development path. And I feel like in the beginning, things go better. You're seeing improvements. You're like, oh, I am happier. I am calmer. Like I can move my energy and things like that. And then it usually gets worse. And then a shitstorm tends to happen. That's what I call the shadow work phase. It's like it's bright and beautiful. And then I think spirit is like, you want to continue, you want to keep this journey moving forward, then we got to dive into the real stuff that's underneath. And that part is usually more emotional, I'd say. And we're a society that doesn't do very well with intense emotions, especially if they're prolonged. So, all that to say, people tend to become very confused at that point where they're like, I kind of thought this was supposed to make me feel better. And I keep hitting these points in the journey that I feel like I'm going backwards, or maybe two step forwards, one step back. So, to answer your question, how can we have more joy in this world? Number one for me is to not take any of it too seriously, including the real world and including the spirit world and the spirit practices, not to downplay any of it. But I think that it's easy for joy to be removed when we become too structured and too serious about the path on either end, the spirit path or the 3D path. So that's the first thing that I like to start out with. It's like, take a breath. All of it's going to be okay. Whatever you're going through, you're going to figure it out. But I also see a lot in the community people swinging so far into the spiritual practices. They get up, they've got like their morning practice that's, 10 things long. If they don't do it, they feel like a shitty person inside. It's like, that's not that helpful either, to be so intensely ingrained in something that if you don't do it, if you feel guilt or shame, that's just kind of another addiction in my perspective. So, yeah, the first thing I'd say is take a breath.
No, I love that. I also love that you're just like, just have some fun. Don't take it too seriously. We don't need all these intense lists of morning practices and all these things because whenever I hear about things like that, I automatically just get stressed out. Like, I have a
Yeah,
5-year-old that wakes me up every morning. There's no way in hell I'm going to wake up before him. It's not going to happen.
no,
And I'm sure it feels good, but I can't also beat myself up about that.
definitely. Yeah, I think more and more we're realizing that morning spirit practice over here, then work over here, then family time over here. Like, I feel like we used to kind of have bits of our life in blocks, and now's the time I think it's all merging, it's all flooding into one another. So, to come back to your question, for me, life is the practice. That is the spiritual practice, more than when you're on the mat, when your eyes are closed in meditation. What you do with that with the rest of your day, are you able to maintain a piece of that? Can you bring a sense of wisdom and calm in a moment you'd normally freak out? Are you on your horn when someone cuts in front of you in the car? Are you swearing in your mind when someone takes your parking spot? That's the practice. that counts more. Those little moments you have, those little decisions and minor tweaks, they count more than if you made your cold plunge and your breath work that morning, to me.
I totally agree. And I think that's why I resonate with you so much because it's like you have to be able to just practice it in your real life all the time and don't compartmentalize things.
Right. Yeah, I always think back to where a lot of these practices came from and some of the context. It wasn't just something cultures did for 30 minutes in the morning. It was just one aspect of the day that was fluid and moved in and out. So I think we can do the same. It's just that we don't have the easiest context in our lives to make it as fluid, but I think there's ways to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Now let's go back for a second, Leo. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, starting with where you are right now.
I have recently moved to beautiful Bali. So I'm speaking firsthand, looking at people all day in their practice. They've got their formal ceremonies, but every day is really a ceremony here from how I view these people. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and immediately after graduating college, even before, to be honest, I had one trimester left. I moved all my stuff to New York City, went back for my last trimester, like lived in a closet, literally my friend's room that wasn't even supposed to be a bedroom for my last trimester, finished, and then went right back to New York. I was a New York kid in my heart. And then I spent 10 years there. After 10 years, did a couple years in Austin, and now I'm here in beautiful Bali. The island called, as they say, and I answered that call.
Well, I can't wait to visit you there.
You're going to be here.
You haven't been a hypnotherapist, though, your whole adult life. What was the career that led you to this?
I was a fashion stylist in New York City for almost the whole time I was there, pretty much 10 years. So, yeah, almost the opposite of hypnotherapy. I was dealing with everything external, everything physical, the material world. So my job was to organize, find all the clothes that the models would wear in the shoot or sometimes on a runway. People don't realize how manicured, how produced everything you see online is. Every piece of clothing, even if it's on a mannequin, even if it's shot on a mannequin on Amazon, there is a stylist there pinning everything to look perfect. So when you buy clothes online and they don't fit how you think they would, that's because the picture you see might not be anything realistic to how the actual garment is constructed because it's all pinned in the back when they shoot it for every brand. Everything's
I had
tailored
no
on set.
idea.
Everything's tailored on set, then of course retouched, but they want it to fit as perfectly as it can naturally on set. I feel like people don't realize that when you buy things, that's why
I
sizing and
mean, that's
everything is
so
a hot
much
mess.
like, that's so much hard, tedious work. And I'm sure dealing with people's egos.
The interesting thing is the people were actually really lovely. The fashion industry used to have a lot more egos, but they can't afford to anymore because it's so competitive that if you have an attitude, you're out because there's a million people behind you that will do that. That kind of image we have of the fashion industry, yeah, there's going to be some of those people, but even the top models, the most lovely people you'd ever meet, hardworking, very knowledgeable, extremely intelligent, very disciplined. They're not showing up to the sets on coke like they were used to be in the 90s. Like that world's not happening anymore. It was an interesting industry. I got to meet a ton of creative people. You're around a lot of craftsmen, people that have a very specific skill and their life is devoted to that little narrow avenue of a skill. There's some people that just do nails for photo shoots.
I mean, I just love that. My husband calls it the wizards. Like there's a wizard
Mm-hmm.
for like every little thing. I love seeing like who
Exactly.
the expert is at that like one specific thing.
Exactly. In New York, I was working with huge brands. I got to be on set for, campaigns that you see out in the world at stores. I'm driving around, you see a billboard. Oh, you did that. So it's fun. And it was fun for my 20s, but I knew there was always something deeper calling me for sure.
Did you go through an actual burnout phase or was it just a gentle transition?
I wouldn't say burnout. I would say it was more like it swooped into my life and kind of like a bird that came from the sky and just picked me up and took me, even when I was kicking and screaming. I mean, I knew that I wanted to do this, and I was styling. Because it's freelance, you have a flexible schedule. So I was always taking trainings in the background for several years, trying different stuff. This worked, not so much. Nothing really was a match until I saw YouTube videos of people doing hypnosis. And these teachers, they would put the whole session on YouTube, like the 2.5 hour session that you could watch start to finish. And I saw one. It was like just on my For You recommended page. I don't even know how I came across it. It just entered. I watched it, and then I was addicted. I couldn't stop. I started watching these like telenovelas, like eating. I was at home just eating popcorn, watching people's hypnotherapy sessions online. And that was it. I was addicted, and then I couldn't stop after that.
That's so awesome. It was your telenovela.
It was my telenovela. Honestly, so I wouldn't say that I burned out from fashion as much as this just became an obsession of mine that I couldn't resist.
I love that. It just, yeah, it found you.
Definitely.
You've commented before that in the past you used to help people on the dance floor without even realizing it. Can you expand a little bit on this idea?
Here she is sneaking in my secrets, my industry secrets. I didn't think it was that unique, but now that I've telling the story more, I'm realizing my origin story is pretty unique. My hypnotherapy career, I say, actually started on the dance floors and underground clubs in Berlin. I was living there in my early 20s. Fine, I'll move there. It's like 23. I just booked a one-way ticket. I didn't even know what the city looked like. And I just kind of showed up. It was another one of those things that I had to be there for some reason. And I started getting into the underground music scene. I was already a lover of that kind of music, so it wasn't a stretch to, it wasn't like totally out of the blue. But those clubs there are just on a whole other level. It's like you go on a Saturday, you can be there 24 hours, for 3 days. You might leave on a Monday and you're there the whole time. It's like marathon clubbing. I just I just jumped right on in, to be honest. I learned a lot from that experience. Number one, I learned that people carry so much trauma in their bodies, and I realized that everyone's looking in their own way for a place to release those stories and that trauma. And I saw that you can't separate spirit from these experiences as well. Our history and our spirit, our soul are intricately intertwined. On the dance floor, it was kind of when I had my spiritual awakening. My crown chakra cracked wide open, and I felt like I could hear my soul for the first time. I would end up in the back of the club doing therapy for people. I'd bring my oils and my Palo Santo. I'm saging this, these dark, techno dungeons. I'm there asking people about how they grew up. I'm 23, like I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and that was kind of the beginning for me. And then I thought, okay, this is really something because people had profound experiences. It wasn't just, oh, haha, we're at a club and that was kind of, a fun little party trick. I knew that there was something else going on, that was much deeper. And it always just stuck with me. So I thought I got to figure out a way to translate this into a career or my regular life without it having to be only in this dance floor environment.
I mean, I get it. I feel like I had many formative life experiences at raves and
Yeah.
in like the late 90s, early 2000s. I think I didn't even realize at the time how important they were. But one of the things that really carried through for me was, when the sun rises and like
Mhm.
there's like the sunrise set and you're like, oh my God, we made it through the night.
Yeah.
That's how I would feel after every night shift in the ER. Like
Mhm.
when you walk out at 7 a.m., it was that same feeling of like,
Mm.
we all made it through the night together.
Yeah, there's a camaraderie there, and depending on the energy of the party, I think the other thing people don't realize about these parties or these stories, and I think people go to, like, EDC Las Vegas or, like, bottle service clubs, and it's not that. These are community-based parties. These are places where there's no phones. You put a sticker or check your phones. The staff is all loving and welcoming. There's no one, like, looking for you to do something wrong. These parties are a safe space typically for queer people or just let's say people that aren't aligning with the mainstream. The parties in Berlin, they were really for the freaks, the artists, the weirdos, the people that had nowhere else to go. They banded together and made these spaces where they felt safe to release and dance and experience joy after the wall came down. It's like they were
Yeah.
dealing with serious history at that time. It was no joke. And that frequency has carried through even to today.
I like what you say about how much our physical body stores so many of these emotions and feelings that at some point need to be released. And I think that that's a really important piece right there.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. After I realized what was happening, what I would do was I would set my intention in the beginning of the night for something that I would like to work on, and then I would let the whole night take me on a journey. So I did so much work around releasing shame about being gay. So I would take any guilt, any shame about my sexuality, and I would take it to the party and I would basically ask Spirit to lead me to people, to the right rooms, to the right situations that could help me move through this. And it would usually be an internal process of dancing with that emotion until you'd literally just sweat it out and then you would free, then you felt like a brand new person. It's like a sweat lodge.
Yeah, it is. It's a modern sweat lodge.
I mean, raves are you're fasting, you're not eating food. It's 100 degrees in there, so you're sweating. It's a sweat lodge. The BPMs are the same as shamanic drumming. I call it modern shamanism.
I mean, I agree. And my husband, Isaac, who
Mhm.
spent 10 years of his life at the best raves in the Bay Area, says the same exact thing all the time. I think we would all agree that that's really what it is. It's our modern culture.
Yeah. And are there dark things? Are people getting messed up and overdoing it? Absolutely. But there's light and dark everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. I actually remember when I was like 17 or 18, I really wanted to go to my first rave. The only guys I knew who were going were like, well, you have to eat ecstasy if you want to come with us. Just that very notion was ridiculous to me. And I was like, what do you
Right.
mean? I love the music. What do you mean I have to eat this thing, this compound to go? And not to knock MDMA, but just somebody saying that I had to do that actually turned me off from MDMA. And then later, I went to a lot of events and it's just so interesting because of course, me being a toxicologist, I'm always going to go back to drugs in the end
Of
and
course.
there is a lot of that drug culture intertwined, but it is not that. It is really about the people and the music and the place.
Absolutely. We heal in community. And we don't typically see nightlife as part of that, a potential for healing communities. And I certainly didn't until I was in it. And then it all clicked. And I was like, oh, this is sacred. This is something very special. And if it calls to you, it kind of calls. But yeah, I did tons of my own personal healing work on the dance floor.
I love that. Now, my hypnotherapy sessions with you have been absolutely transformative. I remember in one of the sessions, we were able to tap into one of my core initial formative memories, and I was actually able to heal from it. And the first step you used was the body. You said for me to tap into my physical body and what was I feeling. As a doctor, this actually seems like a very understandable and comfortable place to start for me and for like all the other people I know who are physical body based people. How do you think that helps to kind of sort out your mind and get you to where you need to go in your session?
Hmm. Most people don't link hypnosis and body-based practices or exercises very much. Hypnosis people usually put in the realm of the mind and don't really include the body. So I can't say that many other people do it, but I include the body because anything someone is working on is going to have a physical and energetic manifestation in the body. That can include things that are off and things that feel very safe. So I like to start with the body so that people get an idea of where they're starting at and what's on my canvas. Because if we just start running into memories or other places, it can be a little like 0 to 100. I like to start with creating safety here first and then scanning for anything that can't match that. Where do you feel the most grounded in the body right now? And is there anything that doesn't feel like that? Once you have like a home base, it's much easier to sense internally what doesn't have that home base resonance. And then from there, we go into that. But I like to start there to let people know that they can always go back to that grounded home base if things ever get overwhelming or too much, they know that they've already made that stop first and that they can always return there. And I think that just establishes safety for people.
I mean, that totally makes sense. That's such a good way to put it. You know where to start, you know where your home base is, and then you can actually like just get to the matter at hand. I feel like it's a really efficient way to deal with so many things in one session. Leo, I feel like there's a lot of people that are going to be listening to this podcast who have no idea what some of your therapeutic modalities are. So I feel like we need to break it down a little bit for them.
Okay.
Because remember, most of the people I know are ER doctors. I don't know who else is going to listen to this, just like five ER friends. And like, that's about it. Okay.
Hi,
So
guys.
so, first, let's get into some shadow work and inner child work, which I feel like are the core integral parts of healing. What's shadow work and why should we do it?
Yeah. Shadow work is a big umbrella term. All shadow work means is using any intentional process to bring something from our quote shadow into the light. And by shadow, we mean something painful, difficult to look at, something uncomfortable to address, or something unseen. So it's the automatic patterns that we get into, it's the behaviors, it's the emotions we don't want to tap into, it's the difficult memories, it's that relationship we don't want to talk about. All the things that we avoid, we push down deeper into our mind, which makes it further from us. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have just as strong as an effect. So there's a quote in the world. I don't know how it came to be that time heals all things. The mind says, no, it doesn't. I'm going to hold this until you're ready to process this together. And when the mind holds it for longer and longer, the body also holds the remnants of it and has to store it somewhere. And to me, to my perspective, I know this is a medical community. To me, that's the basis of disease.
I agree with that. Obviously, there's certain things that you can't help, like, I don't know, getting into a car crash or something.
Yeah.
But I feel
Hmm.
like so much of what
Genetic.
yeah, genetic stuff, environmental stuff.
Yeah.
Let's not get into the fact that we live in a poisoned world. Again, sorry, got to go back to the toxicology. But yeah, I feel like so many of the things that we're actually dealing with, even in the ER, it's chronic things and the
Mm.
things that are festering. And feel like some days I only see women with abdominal pain, for example. That was my first entry into all this stuff in the first place. I realized that I couldn't remember a single day at work for many years where I didn't have abdominal pain the entire shift.
Wow.
And And it was like, okay, how can we fix this? Now I don't have any pain anymore, but it took a lot of work. I think a lot of shadow work to get to like the root causes of it all.
Yeah. What I found after doing this is the body's extremely wise. It has its own intelligence, its own communication. And a lot of the diseases, chronic conditions people deal with is just the body's form of communication saying, hey, something is off here. So it could be environmental, yes, it could be situational, it could be genetic. But if it's not those things, then it's typically emotional, spiritual, emotional. And the body's saying, hey, we're holding something here that we're not supposed to, and we're going to yell about it and scream to get your attention so that I don't have to hold this anymore.
Yeah. So how does one even start with shadow work? Like what would you say is the first of many steps?
I would first say explore books in this realm. We both love The Body Keeps the Score. That's a great place to start. Once again, don't take it so seriously. There is serious work to be done, but it's not a homework assignment that someone is grading. It's your internal emotional journey. An easy place to start is a lot of life coaches use this wheel of categories in your life. It's like, work, home, relationship, friends, the main categories all of us have. And a lot of life coaches coach people through the wheel so that all the parts elevate and the whole becomes, the whole of you becomes lifted and brighter. So if you're completely lost, you can go through that wheel and write some things down in each category and write them 1 to 10 at how nourishing, how satisfying those things feel. So in relationships, write down the 5 closest relationships in your life. And on 1 to 10, how well is that relationship working for you? And that's a great way to start looking at things that you might not realize that you're like, oh my God, I would have put my work satisfaction at 8, but when I really thought about it, it's a 4. That's probably holding me down. There's probably something there that I haven't been wanting to look at and address, that I'm not that happy here and I don't feel fulfilled and I'm feeling dim and dull inside. So that would be a shadow that you could begin to start peeling the layers back and looking into. And there's a million ways and processes to do that. Hypnotherapy is just one of the thousands.
And then how do you incorporate inner child work? What does that even mean to you?
Mm-hmm. Inner child work is the majority of the work that I do with people, because that's when our core patterns really form and solidify. We're like a sponge until we're about 9. And so those years are so formative as we develop as individuals. So the reason why I do so much inner child work is because when things happen in our life, there tends to be a string that goes back even deeper than you remember. So if someone comes to me and they're like, I'm, trying to process this. I'm recently divorced. I'm trying to process this, feeling very lonely. What a hypnotherapist would do is track that thread of loneliness as far back as it can go so that you can get to more of the roots of the situation. And our belief in hypnotherapy is that if you can go as far back as you can, when you transform the roots of the tree, all the branches and the fruit receive that healing as well. So we like to go for the inner part of the core, the deep roots, so that we can get the most robust depth of healing.
That's the stuff that I think sometimes is the hardest and that we've buried down deep inside
Mm-hmm.
and forgotten about. And then we're just pulling them out one by one.
Yeah. So I tell people, look at when you're triggered at something in life and look at the scale. If you get a parking ticket, are you fuming? If someone says a weird comment to you at work, are you extremely sad, or is it crush your day? Do you think about it for the next 2 days? Do you go over things in your mind of like how you would have said that instead? Are you crushed when someone doesn't ask you to have lunch with them? All those little things show you, oh, this is just, we're just get the tip, but really there's a whole community of memories, you could say, underneath that all accumulate into the level of trigger that you experience. So we say all triggers are echoes from the past.
That's like a good tip, is just to watch out for your triggers. We all perseverate on things and think about things too much and get pissed off. And it's like, well, what are those things and what are they pointing you to?
Yeah, and does my reaction match the thing that bothered me?
Yeah.
With this little moment, did it ruin my entire day? And also, what's the pattern? Am I continually thinking about the same kind of things? Am I continually somehow always get a weird boss? I'm always, dating the same person. I always get the one friend that is so needy and drains me and, needs so much of my attention. Start to look at the repeats. That's the pointer for what to go for.
Now, one of the other modalities that I find really interesting and helpful is internal family systems. And it
Mm-hmm.
took me a while to wrap my head around this, but I was hoping you could talk to us about what it is and how we can use
I'd
it.
love to talk about internal family systems, IFS for short. So IFS was created by Richard Schwartz, and he was a family therapist. And he's been doing this 40 plus years. So he's really an OG in this field. And he was doing in-home visits typically. And he was working with the whole family. And then he started to listen to the wording that some of his clients would use. And they would say things like, oh, there's a part of me that when I hear that goes to binge on food. And then there's another part of me that then realizes I just binged and then gets guilty and then goes in this loop. And he started to realize that a lot of the wording people used was very similar to how the families operated, the real families that he was working with. So he realized that we have these internal families, these internal parts that play similar roles as what an external family could represent. So he started to isolate those voices and say, okay, can you quiet all the other ones and let's just talk to the one that binges on food. And he just started to ask a lot of questions and he started to realize it's like they all have their own life of their own inside, and they all have their own identity, their own role, their own job that they believe. When he got deeper, he started to realize, oh, they all have different ages. What he found out was that they represented like a chapter in that person's life, typically. A moment, like a phase where this identity was formed and had to play a role. And he realized that they were still that person. So, not schizophrenia, because we all have these internal parts. He realized that he could work with them. And when they felt heard and understood, and like they didn't have to play that role, whatever role it was, they would then integrate back with that person. They would unburden anything they were holding, release the job, and then they would integrate back with the person, like a hand going into a glove. And he realized that all of us have these parts that are in our minds. You can call them ids or ego states. We all have many, many parts, and they're typically very young. That's another reason why I do a lot of inner child healing, is because most of our parts are really young. That's how we came up with internal family systems, was just starting to ask a ton of questions and making a system out of it.
So, what are some of the different parts? Because they have names, like some of them have names, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the main one we would say are protectors and exiles. So, without going into too much nitty gritty, those are the two main categories. And he uses another, this one's not a part, but he would say that you are self, and he says self with a capital S. That would be pure love. That's your innermost state. He says that anything that's not pure love and peace is a part. So when you're triggered, it's not you, it's actually a part talking to you.
Oh,
Because if you're triggered, that means you're not pure love, which means you're not in self. So anything not in that just pure essence of your truth is a part. So we have a lot of parts. And it's even in our dialogue, like, oh, part of me wants to forgive my dad, a part of me doesn't. Part of me wants to start a podcast, part of me is scared. Part of me wants to go out and be seen. There's another part that just is really comfortable and wants to not, shake things up too much. So parts work separates them and gives them a moment to breathe and speak and be heard, and then they can heal. So the main categories are self, protectors, which are usually more at the forefront, and an exile, which would tend to be the younger parts that experience the most trauma. Almost picture like, a wounded animal
Yeah.
that was hurt. They need kind of a protection at that point. So other aspects of our mind kind of step in front of that one to be like, oh, you're not going to get to her, the one that experienced the most pain. So I'm going to be, you could use like a angsty teen. If I'm over everything, if I'm like above everything, if I roll my eyes at everything, then you won't realize that there's a hurt one behind me that actually really does care. That's a kind of like a Russian nesting doll. That's how it works.
And then once you acknowledge the parts, and then you can kind of work on finally getting the exile out to talk about what they need and
Mm-hmm.
help them, basically. Is that
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
little summary?
everyone's system works totally different. So some people have protectors that are very strong that you need to work with before getting to the exile, and some are not. Some are, just keep an eye on it. And they're like, come right on in. There she is. She's been waiting for you, to remember her and remember what happened at 5 years old. She's been waiting for you for a long time to come back and, find her. So it can go completely different for each person. But yeah, the goal is to reunite, the client and their self energy with the parts so that there can be some mutual understanding and that they can heal together internally.
Now, how do you incorporate the IFS technique into your work?
Yeah, good question. Someone asked me, actually, another hypnotist just asked me that the other day. That I was working with a lot of clients that had dissociation and they weren't reacting well to the typical hypnotherapy protocols that I was taught at that time, which was typically memory based. Find the memory where the first time you didn't, you thought you weren't beautiful. Find the memories that you started to believe you weren't worthy. Go back to those core memories when, something really painful happened. But people with dissociation, that can be very difficult for them. And they're like, I don't know. I don't feel anything. I don't remember. Nothing's coming up. So I started training in parts work to have other options for people. What I realized was that dissociation was just a part in front of all the stuff that we were trying to do. And it was this roadblock. I'd be like, go all the way back. And the people would say, I can't. I'm stuck. I don't feel nothing, anything. I'm just floaty. So when I started to learn parts work, then I would be able to say, okay, are you noticing that, there's some numbness? Can you speak to that numbness for a little while without having to, bulldoze past them? We don't have to rush by. Let's work with this feeling of nothingness. Can you be in the nothingness for a moment? Can you allow that? Where do you feel the most numb? And it just started a different conversation. And I realized that the dissociation was a safety mechanism, which was a part it was playing to keep my clients safe. And we weren't supposed to bypass that. So that's how I got into IFS.
That's so interesting. And I feel like people are talking about IFS more and more
Mm-hmm.
now, and I think it's really useful. Actually, random thing, but at the last big national toxicology conference, there was a session on psychedelics in therapy, which isn't like typical toxicology because we're more dealing with acute overdoses and actual poisonings. But anyway, there's this great session on MDMA. And when they were talking about their study protocols at UCSF, their protocol included giving a dose of MDMA to, patients with severe PTSD or depression or, all the things that they're trying to solve. There's two therapists in the room with them the whole time. And their protocol actually said that the therapists were doing IFS techniques during the MDMA sessions for 8 hours. Now
Yeah.
it's just like, and their results are fantastic. I'll have to do a whole episode just on,
Yeah.
these studies, but the results are fantastic. What a good combo of the psychedelic therapy plus IFS, probably a synergistic reaction there.
Me on the dance floor. I'm going to dance with my part that felt
Yeah.
shame. I was unknowingly doing that at 23. So when I was learning parts work, I was like, oh, it all clicked. People also don't realize that, yeah, when you're on MDMA, you're in trance. That's the same as hypnosis. It's just that you can't stop. It's just deeper and more constant. It's just another form of trance. That's why we call trance music, because you're in a trance. An MDMA journey will you're connected to your subconscious mind just as much as in a hypnotherapy session.
It sounds really powerful with therapy. And, that's how it was initially even popularized in the United States by
Yeah,
therapists in the Bay Area in the 70s. And then it got out of hand. And, obviously,
quote out of hand.
well,
That's a story
we're
that's
going
a
to get
topic
into
for
that.
another day.
That's a topic for another day.
Yeah, yeah, but
You'll
I'm
come
happy to
back.
see it coming back,
Yeah,
and I can't wait to see what happens in that field because we really need a lot of help with PTSD in this world, obviously. And
I
yeah, this has
know.
been repressed long enough, so I'm really excited to see it come back.
Yeah. Now, switching gears for a second, I don't know if I've told you this, but something that I try to do before every shift in the ER is your strong energetic protection meditation on the Insight Timer app. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm plugging you on the Insight Timer app. Okay. It's only 13 minutes, which isn't long, but definitely I have a lot of days where I can't even like find that time, right?
Yeah.
But on the days that I can do it, I feel much more clear, focused, happier at work. The little things don't get to me. I just don't get annoyed by shit as easily. And, I've recommended to a lot of my colleagues in the ED because, we're just constantly bombarded with other people's energy. And I know the first thought is like, oh, really sick people. It's like, yeah, but those are the people we're there to take care of, right? And so I'm okay being bombarded with their energy, but we're also bombarded with the energy of the not sick people who are there, nurses,
Yeah.
paramedics, techs, clerks, other doctors from other services,
Mm.
like just
The family
it is
members of
like
people that are
family, all
sick.
family members.
That's
It is
the
like
biggest one.
packed full of people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, did I leave anyone else out? It's just like mayhem, right? Basically, it's like you can get positive and negative interactions from every directions. And of course, being like the type A people, like the ER crew is, we will only focus on the negative interactions. Like you could say 10 nice things and then one slightly bad thing, and we're just going to perseverate on that. I feel like, though, your guided meditation is like a really great tool actually to just protect against all this. Talk to us a little bit about that. And then what else do you recommend for those of us working in the trenches of medicine to protect our energy?
Yeah. Those meditations are helpful because they remind you that you're in the driver's seat and that you have power to set the tone, at least of your energetic field. And you can't dictate everything that happens, but you can change the frequency you're emitting. Think of yourself as a radio, and those ways of setting an intention before a shift is like tuning the radio to the song you want everyone to hear when you walk around. And if we don't do that intentionally, then it's almost like just jumbled, 5 radio stations playing at once. And then we wonder why all these weird things happen to us, in a day. Because what we're emitting is going to dictate how people interact with us and how our environment interacts with us. So by just leaving it up to chance, then we just accumulate over days and months, years. All of it never has a place to flush and reset. So those meditations are a way to give yourself a wash, a power hose. As much as we clean our biological vessel, we also need to clean our energetic vessel. And we are bombarded with energetic imprints all day long. So if we have no way of flushing that, it just accumulates and then leads to weird interactions and feeling like, oh, life is happening to me because look, all these weird things and people and negative comments, and oh, well, I guess there's nothing I can do. It's like, well, there is, you're just not doing it. And if you try it, you'd start to see how significant something like that could be. It's like, what do you have to lose? At the very least, you're starting your day more relaxed. And people in the medical field should know how important having a balanced nervous system is to healing. Starting a shift, starting your day at least, and feeling grounded is already a win. And then I think the more you do it, you start to notice more little moments. You get these pop ins. I'm curious if this has happened to you. But what I notice is when something goes kind of surprisingly right, you almost have this moment of like, oh, I feel like if I didn't meditate, that wouldn't have gone as smoothly. And I don't know how I know that, but I just know that if I didn't do my clearing, like this would have been a much weirder or messier situation.
I've definitely had a handful of moments like that in the ER for sure.
You're like expecting some bomb to go off and then it like takes a turn. You're like, that is not how that has ever gone before. And then
Yeah,
you
or
start to
someone,
realize you have a lot more
yeah.
power.
Yeah. Or somebody would do something that normally, I mean, I don't lose my cool a lot in the ER, but sometimes I do, and I try to minimize it as much as possible. But something that I would get like just really annoyed at and maybe just snap at someone, I realized, oh, I didn't snap. I was totally cool about it, but still got my ideas across. And just those little things really matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And they accumulate over the time that you're there and with people. So it also has a long term effect as well. And as for other practices, it's just something that reconnects you to your core essence, whatever that is. It's not so much about having the perfect practice or the right steps or protocols or, step one, burn sage, step two, spin around 3 times. You know, every things are only powerful because our mind believes them to be. So I could take my curtains and rub my face with them. And if I think that's going to cleanse my space, then it will because the power of my intention and my belief in it is just as powerful than anything else. So it's not that that particular meditation or some particular practice is going to be so much stronger than others. Like all of our tools, I would say the same for crystals and sage and Palo Santo and incense. Do they have a beautiful uplifting effect? Yes, absolutely. But so do you when you use your mind to work with that. So it's not about having the perfect practice. It's what connect for me, I ask what reconnects me with my divinity and what reconnects me with my integrity and what soothes me to set the tone for my day. So it could be dancing, it could be jumping on a mini trampoline, could be doing 30-second headstand against a wall, could be just splashing your face with cold water before a shift and putting your hand on a heart and saying a nice word about yourself.
Actually, my favorite thing to do on shift is I call it the long hand wash. I'll do like a minute long hand wash at the sink, and I'm
Yeah.
just imagining like everything washing off of me. And it's like the best thing. I definitely do it after every code, like which is our,
Mm-hmm.
code blue. And
Yeah.
especially if someone dies. If someone
Mm-hmm.
dies, I automatically go and do a 1 minute hand wash before I do anything else.
It's a great one. And yeah, I like the ones that have some sort of releasing visual or effect, because that makes sense to us. So yeah, anything washing, cleansing, water oriented, I think is helpful.
I mean, it sounds like maybe we just need to at least like think about these things and
Mm-hmm.
realize we're stressed out and
Yeah.
burning out partly because we are just bombarded with so much energy coming at us all the time.
Yeah. And we need to take that seriously.
Yeah. All right. I have just like a couple more
Yeah.
quick questions.
Fire away.
Okay. So, what do you do to relax and reset?
Dance.
That's great.
That's always my number one. Go out, dance, have fun, be a kid, toss all the rules, enjoy, take a step away from all the seriousness, come back into your body, reconnect with something that brings you joy, and then go back to your life. That refills me.
I love it. What is something you would have told your younger self? Like some
Oh,
advice.
flipping the switch now. You're like, I've been
You know it.
waiting for this one. And go deeper.
Tell me more.
Tell me more about that. That's my number one. That's my number one. So tell me more about that. What would I tell my younger self? I talk to him all the time. My many younger selves. Let me find one. He's kind of surprised that we did it, to be honest. That we went further than even he was dreaming. So I would tell him to dream even bigger, to zoom out even further. My advice would be to continue to listen to when things aren't feeling right, meaning a lot of us on this path tend to felt like an outcast or an outlier during many phases of our life, and then we started to second guess ourselves. We're like, oh, maybe I should just be a normal person. Maybe I should just get a regular job. Whatever it is. I think like we get the ping that like, oh, there's something else calling me, and then the world tells us no. So my advice would be to not listen to that voice so much and to continue to listen. Even when things are uncomfortable, they're uncomfortable for a reason, and that's going to serve you well to listen to that and to dream even bigger than you are right now.
I love it. We could all take that advice.
I think so.
Yeah. Last one, but what is a lesson you're learning about right now?
The lesson I'm learning right now is that when you're in alignment, that does not guarantee comfort.
Oh,
Alignment does not mean comfort.
that's huge.
To accept, acknowledge, to continue on the path and not second guess yourself, even when things aren't working smoothly or perfectly, or this didn't line up, or this didn't happen the way I saw. And oh god, I got the yes to like start this new job, and I went, and it's like horrible. Like I thought I got a yes. I thought I was tuning in and taking a leap with my intuition, and like bought this house, and there was all these problems in it, or whatever. Unexpected road bumps don't mean you made the wrong decision and that you're missing something and you're not listening correctly. There's gonna be some reason for this, and it's okay to move through it with the same grace as if it were smooth.
I love that. Thank you so much, Leo. Thanks for coming on the
Yeah,
podcast.
thank you for having me and being one of the
All
first
right.
people honored.
Tell people where they can find you.
I'm most active on Instagram, restorative hypnosis, and my website is restorative-hypnosis.com.
And are you taking new clients?
I have a little bit of a wait list, but I'm moving through it. So if you're interested, I tell people just fill out the form on my website for the wait list. And when it gets to your name, I email you. And then after that, you can always come back. If it's not the right time, it's okay. You still have the green light to come back anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please like, subscribe, share, and download the podcast. And again, you can find us at Human School Podcast on Instagram. I'd like to thank Dr. Zach Effron for the theme music of our podcast. And I'd just like to make a general disclaimer that any of the institutions I work for, including Community Regional Medical Center, UCSF Fresno, and American Ambulance, have nothing to do with any of my thoughts or opinions, and so we'll kindly leave them out of this. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.